Hello, we're back with another one today. I'm here with Miss Sandra. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Okay. Tell me, what got you into your profession?
In the mental health profession, I started many years ago working for the East Texas Medical Center Behavioral Health Hospital. We served people that had psychiatric needs, substance use needs, and any type of addictions. We had inpatient and outpatient services, so that started my career back in about 1996. And so that was that part. Before that, I worked in the senior care and worked in mental health, even about 5 or 6 years more in that field.
So you had like a big profession on helping people.
Yes.
So what really got you on the mental health journey?
It was just my passion for helping people, and I found there was a need pretty quickly. In the senior field, when I started with that, I saw that there were a lot of people that were at the age that they had never addressed any of their mental health issues, because that was a period of time when people didn't talk about mental health at all. Like, even worse than it is now, they just did not address things. They would just suck it up.
Right.
And so then when I started in that, I was approached by someone from the psychiatric hospital to come to work for them at East Texas Medical Center, and so that's why I ended up at the psychiatric hospital. It's been a great field of work. Not a popular one, but it's a good one.
Yeah, but I wonder, do you have any idea why mental health is not as spoken about?
There's still a lot unknown about the mind, and people feel like that they've been made to feel through the years. When you look back at the history of mental health, it has a long history of being misunderstood. The mind is a very complex organ in our body, and it just is not understood of what makes it work and why some things don't work for people, and especially with mental health, with the depression, the anxieties, and then you've got schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and all these different diagnoses, and they are not always understood. So people think, well, that's a character flaw. And way back, that's where, even back in the late 1800s, when you go back all the way into mental health, you find that people were like, if they didn't understand it, they'd put somebody in a mental health hospital. And so they had different terms for it. They were ugly terms, and people were mean about it.
Right. So, but also I believe that people nowadays have the idea they have everything together. Mm-hmm. I feel like nobody wants to admit they need help. Right. Because you rarely see people asking for help nowadays.
Yeah, but in this day and time of knowledge and the information that we have on our websites, and you would think that we would get over the fact that none of us have it together. Who do you know that has it all together?
No, I'm really going to say, you can be, I always say, life keeps you busy. You can be homeless on the street and you still have problems. You can be a billionaire and still have problems.
Absolutely. In fact, there is no race, creed, color, socioeconomic. There's nothing that a person can be anywhere in life and be hit with a mental health issue.
Right.
And so those anxieties, depressions, and all these diagnoses, grief, when you lose a loved one or lose a job,
right,
and breakups, divorces. And so all of these things create a lot of stress in our lives. Then you take young people that are dealing with all the different things that happen, and then we have COVID hit us. And that started a whole new change in the mental health field. People face things during COVID that they'd never faced before. All of us did.
Right. Do you believe that when COVID happened, do you think people... let me ask it like this. When COVID happened, I know a lot of people started getting real, because I guess a lot of people had it in prison that they were going to pass or die. I feel like that was the one main thing going on. And also people weren't used to just staying in the house all the time.
Right. There was isolation, but there was also a lot of fear. Nobody knew what COVID exactly was, or there was a lot of misunderstanding about it, how to treat it. There still is. We've never been hit with a pandemic quite like that, but when you look back in the history, there were other epidemics like that. But because we have so much information and it's right in real time.
Right.
Back when in the 1800s, when they had pandemics and other times in our life, we didn't have that information highway. It wasn't available, so it was we were isolated. But now everybody, and so there's a lot of things and a lot of misinformation, and some people just enjoy putting out bad information, and it creates fear for people, anxiety.
Okay, I always wonder why, and like I know when it comes to anxiety, I talked to my counselor about it. He said anxiety is something that we used to have when we were in the olden days. We had anxiety because like we were always on fear. But I feel like, how do people really? Okay, let me answer that. So if I had very bad anxiety and I came to you about it, like would I come to you or would I come to like a medical professional?
You'd have to go to a medical professional because I don't treat anyone. I am not a clinician. I am that person that hooks people up to services. I find services when I find out because that's what I did for the hospital. I traveled around to our emergency rooms and clinics, and I kept all this information on the types of treatment that people need. And so you don't just refer somebody to a counselor. You got to find out what's going on with them, because there's different types of counselors. Counselors for addiction, there's counselors for post-traumatic stress disorder, there's specialized counseling on the post-traumatic stress disorder with veterans. They've seen traumas of war. There's other traumas in life that little children face. Maybe they have been sexually assaulted, and there's been all kinds of grief and loss. Maybe that someone had lost a whole family in a car wreck. So you've got different things, and you have to look at, because mental health is not one size fits all.
Right.
You have to find the right counselor. You got to find the one that treats those different things. There's trauma counselors, there's family counseling, there's marriage counselors. Then you have to find out what insurance, what pay source.
Right.
So that's why it's someone like me, I put all those pieces together, and that person can go and not be worried about the money of it if their insurance pays for it.
Right. Why do you believe people don't really reach out for mental health? I know I kind of asked like the question before.
Well, it's because people don't understand mental health. It's like they think, well, I should be doing better, or maybe they feel like people are going to think bad of me, and just like we were talking about, we think we should be this person, this perfect person, and we're not. We're people. We're just people facing issues, and our society, we've come through the years of feeling like we've got to be that perfect person, and people will look down on you. And it's kind of like at school when you're a kid, you get bullied in school for different things because you think, well, I've got to be this way or that way. But in reality, we're all just struggling to be there, to be where we are.
Right. Do you believe there's a lot of misconceptions? Well, I know you said like people that don't have the idea of mental health, but I feel like, do you think we will ever really figure out what mental health is? Because I feel like there's so many different, like you said, there's schizophrenia, there's depression, there's anxiety, there's PT. So how do you really deal? How do you really know?
Well, I tell people, because I've been president of NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Tyler, Smith County, not national. But NAMI is national. National NAMI gives a lot of information. You can go on NAMI.org. And you can read about diagnoses, treatment, really get educated as to what mental health is, what the stigma is about, how we can rise above that, and band together. And they say, one of their sayings is, together we're better. And we are, when we stop being fearful and we educate ourselves. That's true on almost any subject. So if you get on and read some good things from the right professionals that talk about mental illness, one thing that's mental health that can be treated. You can live a normal life. It's not any different than if you were diagnosed with cancer or heart disease. If you have a mental illness, if you get the help you need, there's medication and counseling, and if people do that, I've seen it at the hospital time and time again, and that's what really struck me as many years ago is like, wow, they can heal. This is not a terminal illness.
Right.
Some people have let it go to the point where fearful, don't get the help they need, and they get real chronic.
Right.
But a lot of times, even as a child, if they will get the help they need, they have a great chance of coming out and living a normal life.
Right.
But just like cancer, some people live a normal life and some people die from it.
Right.
And so that's true with any disease. I'm not saying everybody that didn't seek help and they had a mental illness. Yeah.
Right.
So, but I know that anything we have in our body that we seek the help that we can, we have a chance to live a normal life or a healthier life if we take care of ourselves.
Right. What are some complications you notice when it comes to let's say come to kids? Like, how do kids really get the mental health they need?
Well, the parents are usually the ones that see that. They see their child doing things that maybe is what we don't consider normal. And, so that's when they should take their child to a professional and find out what's going on. It doesn't hurt to gather information, but people are scared if they do this or that, it's going to put a stigma on them. Well, better for a moment to have that happen a little bit.
Right.
I'm not advocating stigma,
right.
But to not get them any help is terrible. But to take them and find out, get some more information, read up on it, talk to people, and find out how you can help that child get through that mental health issue. And but a lot of people are fearful of the medications. Well, I tell the ones that work with me in this program to talk to your provider. When something doesn't feel right, once you've been diagnosed and they give you a medication, then go back to your provider and say, well, this doesn't feel good. I'm not feeling right. Don't just quit. Many times they just quit and it gets worse and worse and worse and they just give up on it. But we have to communicate. We have
right.
to work at things for them to happen right.
Right. Did something bad happen if you stop taking your medication when you're on mental?
Yes. A psychotropic med is not like some of the other medications. I mean, you can stop an antibiotic and you might get sick again, but with a psych med, it can send you into a psychosis that can be very, very debilitating. And every psychosis that your mind faces like that, it's harder to come back to what we call a baseline. So you want to make sure that you're talking to your provider. If you're going off of a medication, you come and the doctor will titrate you off of it. If you want to be off of it and a doctor agrees that that's good for you, they'll titrate you off of it. They don't just say, oh, just quit it. And so that's different. An antibiotic or even your heart med, you can still have a heart attack, but
right.
But more than likely, you're not going to go into a psychosis or anything like that.
Right.
But a psych med does affect the mind very strongly. You're dealing with a lot of diagnoses that really are so serious that
right.
those psych meds are strong and they impact the brain.
As you see, as I'm sure you've seen over the years, that many people get over their different. I'm pretty sure you've seen all different types of traumas. But I feel like as time goes on, do you believe that things will get better over time, or do you think people are still? My ultimate goal right now is to fix the stigma of mental health. Like, I'm trying to let people know it's okay to not be okay.
Right. Yes, it is okay to not be okay, but again, it's going to depend on how people handle this. Our young people are seeing that more and more, so maybe they have a chance. I mean, I have no way of knowing. It seems like in some avenues that mental health is getting better because of the education of it, but we're still have so many people suffering that are still not getting the help they need. They're fearful of the meds. They're told by someone, oh, don't take those meds. They'll really mess you up. Or don't go see that counselor. That's weak.
Right.
That's bad for you. And so there's a lot of paranoia. And there's already a lot of paranoia in mental health.
Right.
People get fearful of what's going to happen. And so that's why read up on it.
Right.
Ask a professional. Get to counseling. I encourage all the information that NAMI has. And that NAMI, there's the there's an alliance, Mental Health Alliance. There's all kinds of organizations that put out good information on mental health,
right.
substance use addictions, the intellectual disabilities that people face. I deal with all of that in the court. And so those are things you can read on now, and you can face them with good information and
right.
go forward intelligently about that. So instead of just living in this maybe or fearful world.
Okay, I have one more question for you. When it comes to like families and everything, what is the best route for someone to take if, like, let's say a family member is really ill, but they're not getting the help they need? Would you come in and try to help them? Would it have to be something? I heard when I was trying to figure something out that you have to go to like a lawyer or something for some stuff like that. Well, especially the individual. I think the hardest part is for an individual like that is for them to think they're okay when they're not.
Well, this is a hard area when you have adult children or any adult family member that you have this mental health issue come up, and you can't make them take the meds, you can't make them get the help. And I deal with a lot of that, and I work with the families I ask them to go online, because NAMI has even a support group that provides information to families that are dealing with mental illness and their family members. So that, again, you can't make somebody do anything, but you can arm yourself with all the good stuff so that you know how to work with that family member. And the more you know, the better it is when you sit down, and the way you talk to them, instead of trying to make them, try to win them over by a kindness and a love. And sometimes that helps with mental health, but sometimes you're dealing with something that is way beyond your scope, and there's no easy answer for that. As far as the legal field, some people can get guardianship and things like that, but that's not going to be the answer for no, it's not going to fix it.
Right.
Unfortunately, when you've got an adult, they still make their own decisions, and our legal system doesn't want to take their rights away. So a lot of times, unless they get into a situation where they're a danger to self or others, you can't really even get them in the hospital. A lot of them, that's why a lot of them are living homeless. That's the world they understand. It's very hard. I try to get them off the street, and they don't like it. They don't understand it because they're in that mental health that's going on, that's paranoid, they're scared, and they only understand one way. So I don't have any answer for that. I just refer people to professionals that want to go and get the help.
Okay.
And I talk to those that have mental health issues or living on the street, and I continue to ask them, let me help you get off the street so that you're safe.
Right.
You know, I don't make demands on them, and I'm not going to grab them and say, you are going to go live in this.
Right.
But I keep working at it. As they come into jail, when they're picked up off the street, I keep trying to talk them in. And some of them I get there. Some of them stay, some of them don't. You know, it's a constant work. And, you know, the more love and concern and care we show them, it helps, because they feel it when you love them. Because they have a mental illness, they are very well aware of how you treat them.
Right.
And always remember that. It feels like they're somewhere out there, but I've had them, even after they finally get on their medication, say, I remember you. I remember how kind you were to me.
Right.
And that tells me they know. They're a lot of times very intelligent people, extremely intelligent people, way off the scope. They have a lot of creativity. Mm-hmm. I found out the most interesting things about people with mental illness. So don't think they're stupid, and don't think they don't feel. They just have a mental illness.
Right. Okay. Well.
And I think those things are important to know, because people are afraid of them. There's nothing to unless somebody's violent, and a lot of times the mentally ill people aren't violent. There are some that are, but you're generally the ones I'm dealing with have even schizophrenia. I can sit down and talk to them, and they'll have a little bit of strange conversation that is not in this world.
Right.
But for the most part, they're saying very interesting things to me, and they have some understanding of what's going on. If people will just read up on it, but it's like they can't focus on the information. And when I'm talking to them, it's like they just, sometimes I think, I know I said that to you, but
right.
You're not hearing it. And I understand they're in a trauma a lot of times.
Right.
They're thinking about what's happening to their loved one, but if they would just listen, it would help to read up and understand this mental illness, and it help them. Some families just yell and scream and get into it, and it just escalates things, and then they end up, so many get brought in on an assault of a family, and it's that violence, and then they have a felony.
Right.
And I'm like,
you mainly just from a lack of understanding.
Yeah. When I have one get mad at me in here, do you think I keep going at them? I sit back and I lower my voice. We learn to de-escalate them at the hospital by just talking quietly, stepping back, letting them calm down, and I'll ask them, could you maybe just take a breath? Let's just stop right now and breathe. And a lot of times they will. And if they keep on, I let them kind of run out.
Right.
Stand here. The other day I had one in here just baring her teeth at me. I have a panic button here. So I would push it, but I've not had to. But the other day was the first time I sat here, and I thought, if she comes over the desk at me,
right,
I am pushing it. But I usually know that they're not going to hurt me.
Right.
They're just real angry and anxious, and sometimes you have to tell them things they don't like.
Right.
They have an idea. I can live on the street. I know I can go down the highway. And I'm like, but this is not what the judge is going to let you do.
Right.
This is what we've got to do.
But do you think they maybe just lost their head?
They're kind of got their own opinion of what they want to do. That's a freedom thing, and that's something it is in their head. They think that's freedom, or whatever they're thinking. I'm not really sure, but I would imagine, I've lived that life. I want to live there. I don't want you to tell me what to do. But I'm like, but you're in a court system. You have a case that's going to court. And the judge is going to decide whether you stay in jail, go to big jail, or if you're going to go to a treatment center.
Right.
So work with me here.
Right.
So the other day I just said, okay. And she got mad and flitted out of here. And I walked behind her to make sure she got out of the courthouse okay, and she turned around. I don't need you to. I said, I'm just going to make sure you're okay. And I stayed a distance from her, and she walked on out with no problem. But the officers were very well aware. She'd already come in kind of on one.
Right.
She was angry. But then she comes back the next day, and she was manic, laughing and happy and talking and nothing. I sit here and I watch her, and she said, I'm going to file these papers and on this land. And I'm like, well, where is this land? Well, it was in another county. And I'm like, you can't file those papers in Smith County out of another county. Well, that started wrecking her world. And I just said, look, why don't you just talk to your family and see first before you do all of that? And she's okay. So I kind of had to redirect.
Right.
And she settled down, but then she got mad at me again over at the jail because I had some papers for her to sign. And she turned around and told me I was of no help at all. So I don't take offense. You have to put yourself back here, and it doesn't make any difference what she says at this point. I realize she's upset. She's scared. She's trying to make sense of it, and I'm trying to deal with something in reality, and she's no telling what she's got going on in her head.
Right.
So I left that day. I didn't push it. I let her go off, and she was so angry at me. I went back today. I let enough time. It's been a weekend and a couple of days. And back today, and I said, are you ready to sign the paper? And she goes, yes. Mm-hmm. So we got it signed, so we're going to go forward. I don't know what she'll eventually do with it. I may lose her after I get her out and we've got her in placement, and she may act out. I don't know. But all I can do is, like I told you the other day, is do the job and keep trying to help her as much as I can. I'm dealing with somebody that has a mental illness.
Right. So you're able to separate yourself from...
Have to.
I don't know how you do it.
I have to. It's just something that I realize I can't fix. It's kind of like when you're raising kids. I raised 3 children. I can fix everything for them. Some things they had to learn to deal with on their own. I was there to be that parent. I wasn't their buddy. I wasn't their friend. I was their parent. And so I also put boundaries up, and I realized, and I can't treat them like my children, But I use kind of the same principles that some things have consequences, and you keep telling them, if you don't sign this, you're going to sit here in jail.
Right.
And she said, well, I want out today. That was the other day. And I said, but what you're doing is making me have to postpone the hearing because I have to have this paper signed. Because she said, well, I can go live with my boyfriend. I said, but the judge is not going to let you do that. He wants certain things for your safety because this is a good path we're going.
Right.
Now, again, it may derail down, but what we've done is try.
Right. That's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that's people's lack of reality?
Some of it is. Some of it is. But you got to try to keep them safe.
Right.
You know, it's like kids. Again, you try to keep them out of the street. You try to keep them from driving and killing themselves at every time in every parts of their life. You give them the instruction. And I always hate the springtime at end of school because I know these kids, they buy them these fancy cars and they end up totaled and wrapped around a tree and they're dead at 17 and 18 years old. I saw one the other day. It just kills me. You know, you can't stop people when they're on that course. All you can do is keep trying to teach them and protect them and as much as you can, but I realize all those things are in God's hands. God's will is in there, and I turn it over to Him.
You just let it go.
Mm-hmm. Have to. I'm going to tell you, I do pray for them. I was telling them today when I was over there talking to some of them this morning, and I said, I do pray for you, all of you, you know, and they'll tell me, well, we pray for you. And I said, you know what? I need prayer because I said, this is the hardest job I've ever done getting this program into this legal system. I don't mind sharing that with them. I like the fact that they care enough to pray for me. And when families have called and they talk to me and they say, what can I do? And I got, pray for me. Pray that I have the wisdom to be able to do this, to know how to get through the maze of this legal system.
Right.
Because I didn't come prepared for all of this.
You thought it was something else.
Yeah. I thought it was helping people find resources and stuff like that, but this is way beyond that.
So ultimately, what is the program meant to do? The program is just people come in and just go through a program and get out of it, or is it more of a sense of like, well, then again, like we talked about yesterday, it's not about the legal system not big on mental health. Right.
Well, the whole thing, all of this mental health codes, the statutes and everything that I've got to, and I'm working on that, and I've got one in my car I'm working on, but they have the bench book, and all of this stuff is codes and things on mental health, substance use, IDD, on how it should go through the court system. But the Judicial Commission on Mental Health, their whole goal is, this program is to help people with mental illness, substance use, and IDD, to, when they get picked up, is to be put through treatment and find the resources for them, that they're not punished in jail sitting there not getting anything and only getting worse, but to actually get into treatment and continue that treatment, because addiction or mental health, you don't just stick them in a hospital and they come out and they go, voila, I'm well. It's about, then I go to intensive outpatient. I maybe suggest counseling in some of these places like Celebrate Recovery or AA. It just depends on the person, what I think they can handle. Some of them really like the Celebrate Recovery because it's more religious, and they have people that talk about addiction and mental health and things like that. And so Green Acres and some of the other churches have those Celebrate Recovery. And then there's other groups and organizations that have different treatment and outpatient programs. And so I look at and I listen to what they like, you know, what they're wanting, so that it isn't about what I want. It's about, if I find something that they're interested in, I try to do that, because the more they are a part of it and a part of that treatment and that plan, then that's something they'll own.
Right, because eventually they'll just want to do it anyway. But then again, like you said, if someone feels like they're forced to do something, they're not going to want to do it.
Right. And so I ask them, and they'll say, well, do you think this program, and if it's a good program, I'm fine with it. I like I said, we didn't have any restrictions. The Judicial Commission said, go and figure out what your community needs to make this happen.
Right.
So I've looked around and I thought, I know that people don't like being told what to do. They don't like their loss of freedom. I don't like my loss of freedom.
Me either.
So I said, no, nobody in their right mind does.
Right.
I mean, there's a few people that kind of don't care, but it isn't a mental illness. They just may not. But a lot of people say, well, what about, I've heard about this program. I say, do you think that? And I'll say, well, it's not strong enough program. We can do that as a step down, but we need to do this if I know we're going to court.
Right.
If it's something that they've already detoxed, they've already, kind of got in their head and they don't need the rehab part, then I look at an outpatient program, because I know a lot of the healing that happened at our hospital was in our intensive outpatient programs. They were real strong. They were like several hours a day, and they would come 4 days a week. So there was a lot of intense programming and processing and redirecting. The cognitive behavioral therapy helps them redirect, helps them spot triggers and all of that. So it's dealing with what's happening here, recognizing where it makes you fall or fall off, and
right.
you do something and you go back into a bad behavior. So you know that. So let's look at it turning and going this way.
Right.
Think about it this way. So they learn how to, that's what I do, and then I fall completely off and I get all messed up. But if I do this and this and this, I can keep going forward and stay on track. There's dialectical therapy. We had ropes course. A ropes course is a very strong program that they learn to work together, because many people with mental illness isolate. So this forces them to communicate with each other, like physically get out on a course. And it was behind the hospital. In fact, they've still got it out there. It's just not being used. But we won 2 state awards with that.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And it wasn't me. We had a whole team of people that taught the ropes course. So they work out these different situations outside on this course. Then they walk the tightrope. It's a matter of trusting. They got the rope, people are holding it, and just things like that make you realize, I haven't been very trusting of people.
Right.
So I have to trust my team that I'm going to be able to walk from here to here on this rope while they're holding me.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting, but it's just another therapy to bring you into awareness of what is going on with you.
I think people have misconception of outpatient, and then there's like actually putting someone actually in a facility. Mm-hmm. It's like a big difference.
There's a big difference, and there's difference in the types of inpatient. There's the one we had at our hospital, which Glen Oaks, several of the hospitals around have a short-term 5 to 7 day turnaround. They come in, they detox, or if it's just mental illness, they will get them stabilized on their meds in about a week.
Right.
And then they cut them loose and let them go. And they recommend, not everybody goes, that's why it doesn't always work, but those that it will work will go out and do a intensive outpatient program. That's like 4 hours a day or 4 or 5 days a week. And so that's a lot of counseling. It's almost like a partial hospitalization.
Right.
In fact, there is a program, and it's got its criteria. It's got more criteria to it. And the criterias are decided by the state and the therapies and all of that on how they bill it. So they'll say, if you're going to have partial, you got to have, let's say, this many hours per day for so many days per week.
Right.
An intensive outpatient is less hours, less days. And so we had a step down, all the way to just a follow-up care of maybe a couple of nights a week, where they'd come into a group session and a little bit above AA, but it was still some therapy, and it was an aftercare program.
Right.
And then we did an AA along with that if they were substance use. And so it was configured in so many ways to give them all the support, and the ones that did every bit of it were amazingly successful. I watched it.
It's more like an investment.
It is. What's an investment in your life and your health?
Right.
I mean, how would you want to live with a piece of your life. This is a wonderful life we live. I know it's got its problems. I mean, gosh, I lost my husband. I know about, I mean, I've raised a family. I've been through it all, I've lost parents.
Right.
And so it hasn't been easy, who would want to miss out on it,
Right.
Because it's wonderful. But so many I talk to that have been incarcerated for so long, in and out. And then it's like one young lady told me today, the last time I got out, boyfriend picked me up and took me straight to the drug place. And I got high. And so not naturally, she didn't go check in with her probation. So guess what? When she checked in and they did a drug test on her, she failed it and back in jail. And I said, we don't want that. We want to break the cycle. This program is breaking the cycle of addiction and mental health. I've had them come in and tell me, what if I take the injection? The injection is pretty good for some people, not for everybody, because not one thing. No, there's no one size fits all. But I said, if you're going to do that, because I don't prescribe meds, I don't do any of that. Right. I said, but I'll tell you this, talk to your provider. If you're going to try that, if you don't like the way you feel, go back and tell that person that's caring for you and let them put you on something else. Keep working. It's like working a puzzle.
Right.
And quit walking away and then finding yourself in the middle of the highway laying on top of your car, without your clothes on.
Right.
And so I just encourage, and that's what this whole grant's about, is helping them get out of their groove of dysfunction, and let's go forward into a productive life. And when I see them do it all the time, I'm just like, ooh, I love it. I just celebrate with them. They're just, I'm telling them, you did this. Right. I didn't do this. You did the work.
Right. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I've seen them come from very hard places.
I believe it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they do. They've had some really tough lives that I can't even comprehend, but I know this, I'm happy for them. It's exciting to see that. Anybody that has returned to a life they left behind at some point, something that was what they thought was normal, and for whatever reason, But it's like, many of them have kids. This one this morning was telling me, I have a 15-year-old daughter that was just on the phone crying to me. I said, that should be
a wake-up call?
Yes, but I said that should be the incentive to go forward and be there for her. I said, you want to do this for yourself, she says, but I also want to do it for her. And I said, absolutely. Whatever you have to hold up there that is a goal.
Right.
Instead of just walking out and then going to the drug house to get more drugs and get high. And I don't talk to them like, I want them to understand I'm not judging them. We all have our faults. None of us are perfect.
Right. Was there anything else you'd like to add about?
No, I just hope to see someday that we are working to make mental health something that is very important, and how we treat it and how we work with people, and even in the legal field. I'm hoping to see more ability to get them quicker into the help they need. And like I said, you can't fix everyone. There's a lot of things that we can do, but there's a lot of things we're still not going to be able to do right away. It's going to take some time. We've come a long way,
right,
but we still got a long way to go with mental health.
Right.
And even addictions.
Okay.
People with addictions have a long struggle, but I see them get well. I see people with mental illness get well, and they are out working. And I've been working with these people, and it's thrilling to see them get well and get their life back.
I can tell you really care about the people
I do.
I'm just say, hopefully, knowingly, more and more people are going to start looking out for themselves and looking out for their mental, and realize that it's okay to not be okay.
It is okay not to be okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.